All right, teammates. We are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one podcast on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. To my regular listeners, you already know what goes down here. We bring you nothing but the best. We are here. This show exists so you guys understand whatever you may be going through, be it professionally, personally, relationally, whatever it is, you are not going through it alone. That's what this show has been all about since its inception back in 2020. Today, I have Mr. Joshua Ramsey. And I got to tell you, Josh, getting ready for this, you made me actually look up the term fractional CMO. And I'm not sure if you actually know this, but your company pops up as the first one in the Google search. So obviously, you're doing the right things. You're knowing exactly what you need to be doing from a marketing standpoint. So, all that being said, Joshua, welcome to the show. Before I make the intro too long, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Excited to be here.
Yes. Yeah, and you know what? One of the things that actually did strike me about your story is like myself and many people that have been on the show is you have a background in sales, and I'm always an advocate of sales being a force multiplier and really teaching sales lessons at an early age. So probably the best way to start this off is to just speak a little bit about your experience and growing up as a seller and what initially drew you into sales, and then we'll kind of go into some of the things you're doing now.
Yes, I'll try to keep it brief as well, but
Well,
you
okay,
date.
well, we don't have time limits here, so you gotta say, you gotta say, do what you gotta do, man.
Yeah, so I mean, but dating back to when I was a kid, I spent a lot of time in the country. So my aunt and uncle were cowboys, and they had a massive ranch in southern Oklahoma. So my uncle, being an old school cowboy, we sit around with other cowboys, and I would hear these stories about how they grew up, how they lived, what they did, and everything. So it was always interesting to me. My uncle kind of gave me a term of gift of gab, meaning I had the gift to be able to talk to people, interact, have conversations. That's one thing that I do today with my three kids is that they don't do a lot of tech because I think tech changes your brain. So I know already at their young age of 12, 10, and 6 that they're going to be able to grow into this world, not being plugged into electronics and instead being plugged into people, having conversations, having that gift of gab to be able to talk to anyone at any time and hold that conversation. And I think in sales, marketing, the world today, that's starting to be lost more and more because of the tech that we have. But AI is AI for a reason. It's easy to use. That's why it has been on this massive growth track. So if we go fast forward a little bit from a young boy into becoming a man, I got into sales simply
Actually, well,
because,
just on that point, and
yeah, go ahead.
I'll let you continue because I think what you brought up is actually very important. And as a teacher who teach at the school named the Center for Creative Education, we give them iPads, we give them these things that are, you can't avoid tech. So when you're talking about teaching your kids the gift of gab or making it so they're developing their communication skills, what are some of the tactics that you actually implement for them to avoid that? Because I do think that it's actually very important as well.
Do you mean avoid tech? Is that the question? Like, how do we do that?
So what are the tactics that you are giving so they not well obviously you can't avoid tech completely, but what are the tactics that you're giving to teach the communication skills with the ability to have tech and with the ability to communicate with AI and technology and stuff?
Well, I think there's two ways I could answer that. One would be how do I coach and work with my kids and even clients on just the communication basis of how we're doing sales, why we're doing sales, and what that looks like. Because, I mean, let's not get away from the fact, for this podcast at least, that I am a fractional chief marketing officer.
Mm-hmm.
So, marketing a lot of times is broken into, and again, this could be a whole other podcast about marketing and what it is and why it's such a unknown beast of information. And there are foundational pieces of marketing, but it's marketing communications. But that communications is also marketing and sales. So it's an interesting compounding mix when people use it as a general statement of I'm going to do marketing because they don't really know what it means. So that aside, AI feeds into marketing because now AI can propel you forward in how you communicate and it can give more information. But I think foundationally speaking, for my kids, they just don't do tech, meaning it's rare that they watch TV because it changes chemical imbalances in your brain to be able to receive information but not give that information. So when you cannot read their reaction and their body language, I think more and more today, the younger generation, and I hate to sound like an old guy, but I'm going to sound like an old guy for a minute and say the younger generation just doesn't understand how to interpret the response of the person you're speaking to. So to realize the body language is turned off or turned on, they are engaged or not. I meet people all the time and I tell them in the first 10 seconds, you're going to make a decision of, do you like this person or not? And at what level? From there, people build confirmation bias to either support or non-support that information. So this goes back to rudimentary, Freudian strategies of psychology, which is communications tied to marketing, tied to sales. So I kind of I tried to answer your question there, but again,
no, you
it's
answered it
so
perfectly.
really complex.
Yeah, you answered it perfectly, and really one of the things, and the reason I brought that up is because for you listeners out there, understanding that just putting them in front of a TV. Actually, my cousin, he has a he's almost 2 years old now. But for the first couple years of his son's life, not years, but a couple months, they wouldn't have the TV on at all. Like they wouldn't be like, I'd go there to watch some football. He's like, look, my son cannot. I have to go watch it at a sports bar or whatever. It was like the TV is not allowed to be on, and that point you're hitting on is very important because it does do things when you get so used to looking at that TV screen.
It so does. I mean, all three of my kids, they never were able to watch TV growing up. We would turn them away from it. So if I was watching NFL or what I call football, soccer game, any type of sports, they loved looking at the green and they would catch their eye. But we didn't put a lot of fast playing images to them because when you do that, it changes their chemical waves. So today, my son is 10 and he said something to me funny a little while ago. He said, Dad, he said, the other kids are not as in good a shape as I am. And I said, why is that? And he said, because I'd rather go outside, juggle the ball and run and do active things rather than play video games. And he said, all they want to do is play video games. And I was like, hey, it's a good thing for him to understand that at the age of 10, how mature he is at the age of 10 and understanding just that simplicity, right?
Yeah, so, and that kind of brings me back to what I want to actually, when we started talking about is your upbringing now. Did you just fall into sales? Like, how did it happen? Like most of the people that, like, even including myself, when it comes to sales, you found something you're really passionate about. There's clearly a problem and you want to solve it and you're willing to deal with a whole lot of rejection. And then you just start to get really great at it and stuff like that. So, speak on that a little bit.
I kind of did just fall into sales because I was good at it. I was good with talking with people. The jobs that popped up, it just made sense for me to work with people. So my parents probably nudged me that direction to a degree, just organically. But, I will say I didn't really feel like I dealt with rejection too much. Now, it sounds pretty braggadocious, but I was good at connecting with people and finding solutions. And that's one thing that I've really matured on. And that's what's built me the small empire that I have now, because finding the solutions is really what every business owner wants. Everyone has problems. Everyone has frustrations. But if you can come in and find the solutions and not just give one solution because they may or may not like it, but give them multiple solutions. But let me speak to this for just a second. Within that, the problem in sales was that I did not understand what I understand today. And here's the big, bold statement. If no one else hears anything that I talk about, here's what everyone needs to understand. When you go to a salesperson, they sell you what they are good at. So let me rephrase this. When you go to a salesperson, they sell you what they're good at and what they have to offer, not what you need. Now, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But if you really grasp that, the salesperson sells you what they're good at and what they offer, not necessarily what's going to grow your business. And when you start to understand that, you start to understand the fact that not all salespeople are bad, but they're also not necessarily out for you. They're out to sell their product. So if they're really good, they're going to sell you that product because they're going to show it as a solution rather than what it could be, which is, do you really need it? Now,
Mm-hmm.
from that bold statement, you can go down so many different rabbit holes because as a digital marketing age, you have SEO. Well, again, when I say marketing is this big ball of garbage, sometimes I'll say marketing is a big ball of crap. You have to be able to break it apart. And when you break it apart, just on the SEO side, there's two core pieces of SEO: link building and on page. On page is building your content, building your imagery, telling your story, your narrative, your USP, your unique selling position. That's on page, where when someone lands on your site, they get it and they're like, wow, this is amazing. Or they go, you look like everyone else, bye. Link building is pointing to your site as a credible source. So they're both needed, but I look at it, and in my philosophy and strategies, it is build up who you are first before trying to get others to like you. You could go back to, Carnegie and say how to win friends and influence people. Be interested in who they are. Now it's solutions. Again, you kind of see the dominoes being set up to fall in your favor. So that's why I say I was able to find solutions, sell easily. But the light switch hit when I went to work for a top 100 ad agency. And I realized with them that the strategic message matters more than the tactical placement, right? Because your podcast is a tactical piece of marketing. It is a tactical placement to advertise, but your strategic message are you and your guests and the information that they sell. That's your strategic message. So what draws them in? They may see your podcast with thousands of others, but your strategic message is the narrative and the information that you sell, and that's what pulls them in. So again, now we go down another spider web that I'll pause here and let you ask questions.
Well, the thing is, I genuinely I appreciate what you're talking about in that statement about people selling you what they're good at. I think it's really, really important that we grasp and everybody listening and understand what he just said, because for the people that are selling your intellectual property, you're selling coaching and stuff like that, you have to know what you're selling, and you're actually selling what you're good at. And one of the things that I really picked up with, I actually hired a coach as well. One of the things that he would say all the time, look, I'll meet you 90%. I'm not going to help you become a millionaire. He was out in front of him being very honest, is what made me want to invest in him in coaching, because he told me straight up, look, if you put in the work, then I'll help you build your content, build all that kind of stuff. And I understood going in what it was. So the expectation wasn't there. However, I want you to kind of dive in deep a little bit about, what are some of the practical ways in which people can understand the difference between what they need versus what a person's selling them that they may be good at? Because that diagnosis is incredibly challenging with all of the, like you said, marketing crap that's out there, where you could say, look, I need this. And the next thing you know, you're going to pop up here and, oh, maybe I need that. I need that. I need that. Need a thumbnail. Need this, need that. So, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just finished a conference in LA. I literally landed last night back into my home city. And at the conference, I have business owners that come up to me and go, my business is unique. And I go, okay, I'm leaning in. Well, tell me, what do you do? I'm a roofer. Wait, your business is unique. You're a roofer. What makes you unique? Oh, well, I'm certified and I have a contract and I've been around for 30 years and my dad had it before me, and that's what it is. Okay. But none of that's unique, because the other guy's been in business for 32 years and he has more certifications. He also has awards. So why are you unique? He can't figure out a way to explain it to me. So this is where I have to help him understand what makes you unique isn't your business. It isn't your craft. It's your story. It's your narrative. It's why you started the business. And now we move to your unique selling position. What is it that you do that you offer that no one else offers? So whether you're an employee looking for a job and you want a pay raise, help them understand your narrative. If you are a business owner and you're trying to pull the best employees to your business, help them understand your narrative and understand their narrative to see if they align. Because the best employees are going to be the ones that your narrative matches, right? The ethics, the morals, the values that you bring to it. I'll never forget when I was in college and I was living in a little condo in a little city called Denison, Texas. And there I was it was one of those duplexes. And my neighbor and I had the back patio. And I told him one day, I said, hey, I'm going to go to Home Depot in the next week and I'm going to buy some lights. Do you want me to buy a light that matches yours and wire them so our back patio looks good? He was like, yeah, that'd be great. Just let me know how much I owe you when you buy it. I said, cool. About 2 weeks later, I bought it. I installed it. He came home from work. He saw it and he looked at me and I'll never forget. He goes, wow, you actually did it. And I said, what do you mean? I told you I was going to. He goes, yeah, but do you know how many people I know that will say something but not do it? And boom, that has stuck with me for 20 plus years, where he was surprised that I said I would do something and I actually did it. And I find it unfathomable to me that people even today say something but not do it. Because you go back even further to a handshake meant more, and still to me today means more than a contract.
Yes.
And that's part of just like, it still blows my mind of doing what you say you're going to do.
Right. And it goes back to what you were saying just now is, when it comes to what's making you unique, it is your story. However, especially for you listeners out there, this isn't a simple process. All right. It's not easy to tell your story to strangers. It takes courage. It takes you actually, developing and being able to own the past and own the things that you've done. And then that's what makes you unique. And that's what gives you the confidence to go out and put whatever it is you're going to put out there. So when it comes to the work you're doing now, the company you built, how did you develop the courage to tell your story? And then essentially, how are you able to teach others the same way to lean into their story and then put it out there to market it that way?
Okay, so I'm going to answer that, but before I answer that, you may have to ask me again because I'm probably going to get off track. But I'm going to drop something here on your podcast that you should be blowing up and everyone should be talking about, right? It is difficult to write your narrative, but I'm going to give you some of the first steps to do it. Number one, be aware of the platitudes that you're about to write down when you do the two things that I am about to tell you to do. So number one, write down, what are the top three things that every customer asks you? Every customer will ask you typically three main questions. Most of the time, one of those questions is going to be based on price. What you're now faced with is why people buy. They buy on three steps: advantages to ownership, objections to owning that service or product, and then vendor selection. If you're dealing with vendor selection, the problem is you have not overcome their objections. So write down the three things that every customer asks you, and then you'll realize what they're asking and where your marketing should dictate. The next part is write down the three questions that they should be asking you. What are the three questions that they should ask you that maybe they're not, or maybe they are not asking your competitors because that person is moving to vendor selection too fast? Because what you should be doing in your marketing is changing their paradigm, because their paradigm is a predicted behavior that we all follow to make buying decisions. I understand the advantage of this product or service. I have objections of that product or service. And oftentimes your objections hit because you have not explained the advantages well enough. Because if I explain every advantage to a product, I have no objections. You want to go back to sales 101? Give them solutions. How do you give them solutions? Advantages to buying what I sell. They then have no objections. Therefore, they're not going to go through vendor selection because I am obviously the best choice. There's no shadow of a doubt. I am the best choice. So that's how you start to form your unique selling position, is those steps. Now, how you go about it, too many times business owners go through the platitudes, words or phrases that they feel have power, but they have none. And I want to share one more thing before you jump back in.
Yeah, go ahead.
When we talk about this, people oftentimes write their website content, and they should be writing about that. But here's what they do. They think what they say and or how they say it has the impact, and it doesn't. In today's age, it's not what you say, it's not how you say it, it's what's perceived by your audience. And if that perception does not draw emotional connection, they will move on from your website and go to the next one. And that's what they're looking for, is solutions and the emotional connection.
Yes. And well, first of all, that's very, very profound advice, and I appreciate you dropping it on the show. And the next follow-up question I would have for you is, your typical client would be is it the CEO of a company that reaches out to you and they need help with their marketing?
So my clients really kind of consist of two things. One is the CEO, but believe it or not, I have found that more CFOs and CPAs come to me, because what happens is the CEO will work with a marketing person, a team, an agency, and they will spend so much money on marketing, but not really knowing what the KPI is, what the ROI is, what should happen, when, how long should it take, and they don't set the right expectation, and it never meets. Expectation and output are two different things. So a CPA will get frustrated with the marketing dollars going out and the lack of revenue coming in. So I have seen a huge shift where CPAs and CFOs are contacting me and saying that exact thing of, we're spending an absurd amount of money in marketing and we have no idea if it's the right amount or not. So my perfect client, reading into a little bit of your question, is one that's willing to be educated enough that our nomenclatures match. They understand what the KPI is and how we're going to achieve it. One quick story, because I find that people understand stories more than just teaching, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
And the story is, I had a client that was a brick and mortar. We were running Google ads, map ads, okay? Map specifically. Now, logically, let's think through this. If someone went online and they look for a service or product, and in this case, it was a product, they were looking for a product and they did a search on map ads for a product, they're looking at the stores around them. They then click on a store. And when they click on the store, they then read the profile of the store. Then they might hit directions to see how far the store is. And then they click start. So we understand logically in our brains how Google Maps work. Agreed?
Yes.
Okay. Now, as a business owner, if you're my client and I show you we had this many impressions, and I show you every bullet point that we just agreed would be our process. And we understand logically as businessmen that not everyone that does an impression is going to click drive to this location and start. Agreed?
Right.
But if I told you that 100 people clicked start driving to your store, my question to you is, what are the percentages of that group, of that 100 that clicked drive to my store? What is the percentage of those people that organically found you and clicked drive to store will show up out of 100? How many? I'm asking you.
I mean, that'll actually show up. Probably not high.
Not high? To hit start?
Well, the thing is, so they came to, so I'm following you, right? They came organically to the drives. Okay, so if they're coming organically without there being like ads or anything, then actually the process, they probably would show up, because that's the process that they were already looking for something via, all right, this is the service, or like the guy you mentioned with the roof, I'm already looking to get my roof fixed. So I'm going specifically to Google, and like, actually I found your website by saying CMO, Fractional CMO. You're the first one that pops up. So if you're going organically, it goes higher. So
let's just logically walk through it one more time, because I think this is important to understand, because here's the client I will work with versus not. I don't work with that client anymore. And here's why. The logic matters.
Which client do you not work with?
That I'm explaining the process of maps. So we showed up for someone looking. Now I'm going to make up the product, okay? That everyone buys, everyone knows, and it's jewelry.
Yes.
So everyone listening understands jewelry. And you understand that you typically go to a brick and mortar, you go to Zales, right? Or whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to use Zales. They're not a client, no affiliation at all. So you look up and maybe you type in Zales. And when you type in Zales, other jewelry stores pop up because they pay to be there. But you're looking for a jewelry store. Now, maybe you're dedicated to Zales, but maybe you're open to another store. So you type in a product, jewelry, men's necklace, woman's necklace, woman's engagement ring, and you're looking for different stores. and you see this other store and you click, they're a little closer. I wonder what they do. And you click on it and you read a little bit about their ad and you see some of their pictures and you see their reviews are, 1,000 reviews at 4.8 stars.
Yeah.
Now you're impressed. Agreed?
Yeah.
Now you go, okay, well, how far are they? And you click directions and it shows you there's 3 ways to get there and it's 18 minutes all the way to 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Now you haven't decided at that point to go, right? Because now you're going to look at others. You're going to go back and you're going to look at others. Oh, this one's a little further. This one's a little closer. And then you go back to that store and you go, you know what? I think I like that one because their Google profile was good. Their Google Map profile was good.
Yeah.
They're not too far from you. You liked the pictures. And now you decide to hit start.
Mm-hmm.
How many times of those people that go through that process and hit start, how many of those people are going to show up to that store?
Yeah.
Because I'm willing to give you, it's not 100%. I'm willing to give you that. But what I heard you say in the beginning was it's 10%.
Mm-hmm.
So where does it land? Do you think it's 10% of those people or 90% of those people?
Now that you explained it, I believe it's 90%.
So I'll even go as low as 70%.
Mm-hmm.
I would be willing to lean against and paint the world bad. Marketing sucks. It's only 70. You wanted to argue with me that it's 50? Awesome, man. I'll give you a 50. You want to push me to the limits and say only 40%? I would say yes. Here's why I stopped working with that particular client. Because that particular client that's not in the jewelry world, in another world, but still brick and mortar, told me that it's less than 10% would actually show up. And I said, there's no way that's possible. So I went out and took a survey of 100 people walking through a mall. And I said, hey, I'm going to give you $10 to just answer a couple of questions. And I walked them through this scenario in the city that this person was in. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I walked through the mall and I took a survey of 100 people, giving each of them $10 just to answer this question for me. Mm-hmm. 90% of them said yes, they would be going to that store. The other 10% were kind of like, well, I think that there's other factors. So I said, fair enough. I'm going to put them in the bucket of they won't go. Even though they said, yeah, maybe I will, they were kind of in the bucket of not so much. Mm-hmm. This person said less than 10. I looked at him and I go, I don't see the math working. To me, this is logic. If you do that much work and you hit start, and then we looked at the numbers of traffic to his store during the exact hours that people hit driving, and the times that we saw the driving hit yes in that hour block, we saw an increase of overall traffic into his store. You want to ask a marketing guy for KPIs to track attribution as close as they can, short of knowing did they come and how did they come. And I can say they saw the ad, they clicked on the ad, we got an impression, we got a click, they went all the way through every bullet point to, I'm going to go to this store. And then you're going to tell me that it's less than 10% when they took all of those engaging steps. And then we look at your traffic in store at the specific hour block that they were looking, and it has increased because we were only running ads as a beta test within that. I don't know how more accurate you can get. So when someone goes, well, how does marketing work and what are you looking for and how do you track it? There are specific ways of data analytics to track it. Now, here's where I'm going to leave part of this conversation with. There's 2 types of marketing people. Generally speaking, there's 2 types. You have what I have dubbed the butterfly effect. The butterfly is the marketing person that says, this is a pretty picture, this color is nice, this imagery is nice. And I'm going to tell you, we need that. We need that pretty picture. But then there's the data person. And the data person is the one that says, hey, we checked every KPI box. And all the numbers and all the metrics say we got this many impressions, this many clicks, this many driving directions, this many start buttons, right? And here's the traffic to the store, and here's all your data and metrics of what happens day to day. These are 2 very different brains. I like to fall right in the middle, but I definitely lean towards the analytics side. And I know how to find the creative people. But business owners need to understand whether they're hiring full-time or fractional, these are the things that you look for. And then I'll conclude this one more way. I have a company that just started an engagement with me. They have a CMO, but they've hired me to simply come in and look at the data and the analytics and the black and white numbers of what their CMO is doing. Simply to give that CMO an additional bandwidth bullet point checklist of they're doing all of this, and here's what's working and not working. And now the CEO can look at my report, unbiased report, unemotionally attached, and then look at what their CMO is doing and shift the decisions that their CMO makes because of the analytical data that I feed back. Because the numbers, when plugged in properly, they don't lie. And that's where you make your decisions.
Right. And actually, too, on the example you just shared, because this is something I do all the time, too, is when you're actually looking for places to eat, you may not just be looking for jewelry. You're going to go look up where's a good breakfast spot. You're going to look at the reviews. It's not that far. You're hungry now. So you're going to go to the shortest place, and you're going to have more likely to show up at that place because of what you were able to find through that Google search. And, when it comes to obviously the amount of research that you've done on this, the amount of work that you've done on it, I'm assuming every client has a different need or a different strategy. How did you go about building a company around it? Like, how did you go about codifying everything, having a mission? Like, how did you actually get it to where now you have a company that talks to these specific needs?
Are you talking about my company and how we speak to the needs?
You're right.
So I think I can kind of answer that a little bit more broad. I think that the way companies should be set up are you have a product or a service that is potentially a little bit more general. It's not a specific, it's a little more general. Then from that, you start to modify your product listing based on what their needs really are. So what I do as a fractional is I have the data that works as a whole, but the modification I call leveraging, and the leverage is the agility to change our direction and our movement based on what the client needs. So we go in with a plan, but then we modify and we become agile based on the results. I love science fair projects. Remember in junior high, most kids did science fair projects where you go, I have an idea,
I remember those.
And I'm just going to use a pin right now. So here's a pin, and I'm going to say, hey, will electricity flow through this? So the idea is, what will electricity flow through? So I have a cable and a pin. So on the cable, it's just plastic. Will it go through plastic or will it go through metal? And then you run your current and you track your results, your variables, and you see what happens. So when I started my software development company, one of our mottos was build it, break it, fix it. Within those two components that I just explained, here's what I would tell a business owner. If you have an SEO company working, when they make a change, what you should see is your metrics go up or down. And if they stay flat, you didn't have enough impact. It should always impact. You either go down because you go, oh, that sucks, don't do that again, revert back to normal, or it goes up and you go, that worked great. Why did it work great? Why did it not work great? And how do we adjust to make it go more? So when I watch agencies or even my agency do web work on websites, I'm looking for breaks more than I am impact. Because if they break it, they're going to learn from it because they built it, they broke it, now they fix it. So that's what we start to look for are the specific KPIs. Now, let me also throw this. I don't work with any business owner unless they do my 30-day starter plan. The reason that is because I want to know what is our plan, how well do we work together, and are we going to see eye to eye of what are the outcoming metrics? It doesn't always work because sometimes you get into the agreement and things change where the business owner doesn't agree anymore, or they don't see the metrics, or they don't understand it, or something can shift. It just happens. That's human nature. But 90% of my clients move from my starter plan to an actual engagement, and the average life of my clients are about 3 years. So for an ad agency or a marketing person to be involved for 3 years with this massive volume that my companies do, it's a pretty big number. Pretty big.
Yeah, that is a big number, and it's crazy because as you're talking, I'm thinking about how much it really. I have a sports background, a football background, and our coaches used to say all the time, "You're either getting better or you're getting worse every single day." And it's crazy to think about how that continues to correlate and continues to relate and parallel when it comes to your business world and marketing and things like that. So, there's so much that I could dive into with you when it comes to a lot of things you're saying, but I do want to be very, very respectful of your time because I know I know you're busy and you're doing a lot of cool things. Well, so can you just tell people a little bit about how they can get in touch with you? Well, first of all, what's next? What's the big thing? What do you see as like the future of your company? And then you can kind of talk about how people can get in touch with you.
Well, again, I love the question, but let me say this. I don't like to talk about myself as much. I like to talk about how I help people and what
Right,
they
right, right.
should be doing, why they should do it, and what they should look for. And the
Mhm.
new big thing out there is programmatic advertising. Programmatic advertising is something that's just coming on with light speed, and it's just going to change the world of how you market. Everywhere that I'm plugging in programmatic and doing it the right way. So I'm going to tell you, there's a wrong way, and then there's the right way that actually works. And I've been able to partner with good companies to identify the way programmatic should work. Through me interviewing them and identifying the best avenues related to programmatic, it truly does work. So programmatic is something to pay attention to. And as far
Mhm.
as the other question you asked of how to reach out to me is, as you kind of found out, it's pretty easy. So the number one thing is if
All
you
right.
type in Josh Ramsey marketing,
Yeah.
especially Josh Ramsey marketing, you're going to see me dominate Google. I mean, I
Okay.
know some people go, hey, it's easy to get ranked for your name. Okay, Google your name and then go Google my name, and you're gonna be like, oh, okay, this guy actually, has it.
Right.
The other way is, I'm a fractional CMO, so I focus on all SEO, but I really focus on the top 30 to 40 cities in the US. So if you
Mhm.
typed in fractional CMO, Dallas, Austin, Tampa,
Mhm.
Miami, Los Angeles, LA, Denver, Boise,
Mhm.
big cities, then I show up in the top 5 or top 7. So
Mhm.
I show up a lot of different places on that. But again, Josh Ramsey Marketing or JRcmo is how to
Right.
get a hold of me. Now, the other thing I'm going to throw out there is
Yeah.
I do a 2-hour free
Yeah. Well,
consultation.
no, it's funny because that's exactly what I was going to ask about you. Ask because I was nervous. So go ahead. Go ahead. You beat me to it.
No marketing people do 2-hour
No, I
consultations.
mean, and just so because I had to literally, so just to give you the story, I had to go back and rewind. Did he say 2 hours of his time that he could be spending going out marketing and making money? Like he's giving you 2 hours of free consultation, and if you don't take advantage of that, again, this is on you. That's very, very generous. I
Yeah.
know that for a
The,
fact.
the reason I do 2 hours though is that in 20 minutes we can't learn your narrative.
Hmm.
What I'm looking for is the first hour is research. We want to plug into your Google Analytics, we want to plug into your business evaluation. We want to do all of our research on our side. So my team works with me to put all of that research together so that when I sit with you, I'm already understanding part of your narrative, where you came from, why, what's your unique selling position, what do you offer that others don't. So my business evaluation alone goes so in depth that you have to take enough time to really think through your process so that when I read it, I go, okay, now we can start to work. Then I give you a verbal feedback of, look, this is what I see that you're doing well. This is where I think you're missing it. This is where I think you have a blank area. You need to figure this part out. I give that information because here's what I have found. I have people that I met back in 2009, 2010, 2008 that still come back to me because they've moved to senior level executive positions with other companies. So they bring me new clients
Right.
because they've known me, they've seen my process, they know it works. So they continue to stay with me, they continue to build. I still have clients that signed with me in 2010.
Yeah.
They're the owners and they're still with me. And
Oh man.
I've got a guy that I love that's a pest control guy in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And we've become friends and we've worked together since about like 2016. And we've become friends. We now travel places and go to MLS football games, soccer games. We
Yeah.
went to
Yeah.
the US Nationals game in Dallas
Right.
together because we're friends. Like, and we work together because I say what I'm going to do and then I do it. And I
Yeah,
think a lot of business owners appreciate that. If we have a plan, we know the KPIs, we move forward, and we adjust to become agile as needed. So when
yeah,
you get that type of relationship from a marketing person, I know people are going to stay with me. So that's why I do the 2 hour, is to really
yeah.
help and understand where they've been and where they want to go, and then give them that verbal plan.
Yeah, it's funny because you keep beating me to my next question. The next question was going to be how exactly are you able to maintain, and then you just said it, the referrals. And I'm thinking about again that person that's moving up in the company or they go to another company. They remember back when you had that your guy or what they were doing from a marketing standpoint, and everyone's going to need marketing in some way, shape, form, or fashion. If you're that guy that's providing the quality service and giving them the results, showing them the results, then you will get referrals. And I'm re-emphasizing that for you listeners to understand. If your product or service is giving real results, then you will get referrals. And that's how you build. All right. Word of mouth epidemics are the best way, in my opinion, to really grow your business, because those referrals are going to be so, so huge. And, people working with other people, that's what they want to hear from. So, you know, the final thing I do, Joshua, to close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You are back to being the early sales guy. You're young. You haven't really built up that. Well, actually, this was probably before Google was even a thing. So kind of go back to that version of Joshua. Give him some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
Learn in your 20s, apply in your 30s, retire in your 40s, reinvest into your 50s. You could even change the 40s to say reinvest and retire in your 50s. But I'll tell you this, I retired, I call it retirement, twice before I turned 40. And now I'm 45 and I will retire pretty much forever by the time I'm 50.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that goes to, I learned so much in my 20s of
Yeah.
what I liked, what I didn't like, what worked for me, what didn't. I applied it in my 30s to really mature that, grow that, build my companies, to then retire into my 40s and
Mm-hmm.
take it a little easier. I still go hard, man. I
Yeah.
mean, I still go hard, but I found the balance of when I go hard and when I have to relax, when I can push and when I can't. In my 20s and 30s, man, it was like grind, grind,
Yeah.
grind.
Yeah.
In my 40s, I've been able to not grind as hard, but be able to find the windows of grind here and relax here, and grind here and relax here. And you talked about sports. I'll go to Messi. Think about Messi, one of the
Yeah.
greatest, if not the greatest sports player ever to play. Now, Messi walks a lot, but then when he runs, he runs.
Mm-hmm.
But he does it logically by watching the pieces on the pitch to say, they're moving here, they're moving here. I need to be walking this direction, walking that direction, find a hole, and then boom, he takes off. He strikes.
Yeah.
That's the difference, right? Because he didn't learn that until much later when one of his coaches said to him, hey, I want you to see the game and walk and save your energy. So that way you are so much faster and fresher at the end of the game when
Mm-hmm.
you have to make a difference. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge component there. So that's the encouragement I give a lot of people, but also
Yeah.
back to myself when I was younger.
Yeah, well, actually, it's funny you brought him up. LeBron does the same thing. If you really look, I'm a Miami Heat fan, so if you really look at him from those Miami Heat days to the Laker playing days, he gets his rest on the court. He gets his rest. He's not really driving, and when you develop that jump shot and you got strategic with it, you're able to move forward. And in fact, just what you said is making me think of a former client I had. She'd retired, but she gave a speech saying she's retired but not tired. All right. There's a
Yeah.
difference between being retired and being tired. So, again, appreciate the work you're doing, man. Looking forward to really keeping up with your work. I learned a ton just off the first interview and just being able to listen to you. So I'm definitely looking forward to being in your world. Everyone out there, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.